I did a video last year where I discussed breakouts, guys who I felt were going to have breakout years in the coming year. Now, when you're discussing breakouts, it's a tough thing to do. For example, I felt Elias Lindholm in Carolina was due for a big year in 16-17, and his point totals went up. But he didn't have the kind of season that I thought he would, and I haven't picked him this year. But I stayed with 5. See, and there are some that I think are probably pretty obvious. But in general, it's a hard pick. Because when you're picking who's going to break through, like, I know last summer everybody was surprised I didn't pick Pastrnak. In my eyes, Pastrnak had already shown his talent. He just got hurt the previous season. It wasn't a matter of, oh, wow, he's a goal scorer. Any Boston fan knew he was a goal scorer. It was, he just got hurt. So, as a hockey fan, I have to look at that and say, all right, well, I could have picked him, but I didn't. And these playoffs have been different in that I've seen, an emergence of a star in Jake Gensel in Pittsburgh, but I can't pick him as a breakthrough guy because he had 16 goals in half a season this year. It's not like he didn't play well, and it's not like he didn't score. And I have to avoid rookies. So there were a lot of guys I looked at who played maybe 10, 15 games this year and didn't play a lot and didn't score any, maybe scored 1 or 2 goals. And I'm like, well, maybe I could pick him. But I tried to stay away from that. But, it's a matter of they're all young kids. And I restrict it to people who are, I think I went with 22 or younger. Because that's where you're going to see most likely that breakthrough. And often it's the third season where a guy will finally have it. So the rookie year, they're happy to be there. There's no pressure. There's no worries. Sophomore season, the pressure steps up a little bit, and maybe your energy level drops a bit because you don't have that adrenaline. You're going to these arenas now for the second or third or fourth time, depending on whether it's a division rival or it's the opposite conference. And the excitement level is still there, but it's not the same. Third year, okay, you've got this. You're kind of a veteran. You've got this down, and you can start playing your game. So third year, I think it's easiest for guys to start really coming into their own. And then from there forward, it's an interesting topic, too, that most players will score their best during their early mid-20s. There are exceptions, but a large number of players will score their top number of points when they're 25, 26 years of age. And then, of course, you'll see them signed as free agents when they're 30, with teams looking at that year they had when they were 26 or 27 and saying, well, we believe that they can be that player again. 2 middling results. Some guys can, but not everybody's a Jaromir Jagr. So 5 guys. And at number 5, I have Jesse Pulley. This looks like an easy pick, but it wasn't. Pulley had a rough rookie season. Goes down to the AHL. Had a rough go at the beginning. Seemed to be getting it together towards the end. But it's still not the NHL. That being said, he will get every opportunity to make it next season. He'll get every opportunity because Edmonton's going to be in a cap crunch soon. And they're going to need Pulley to be a part of the team, just in case they have to jettison a couple of guys up front, like, say, Eberle or potentially Nugent-Hopkins down the road, too. And that's where Pulley being able to step in as a top 6 would be very, very advantageous to the team. That's where a steal, like, if a Tyler Benson, who was injured most of the season, if Tyler Benson turns out to be a steal in the second round, that could be helpful, too. This is where those things come in quite handy. But I do think Puljujärvi's going to have a better second year. I know he can't have a much worse season than he had his rookie year, but I still think he's going to get better. Number 4 is Travis Konechny. Konechny alternated between looking like he's a future star and being isolated from the team and thrown into the press box. Philly is a team that's going to get better. And Philly is a team that seems to have brought together a pretty good blue line. And Konechny's a key part of, I think, fixing the forward group. I have a funny feeling that Sean Couturier could be a candidate to get moved out of Philly if they decide to make some kind of, not major change, but a revamp up front, and it could benefit Konechny. The Konechny could step into that role. And I think his potential offensively is a lot higher than for Couturier. So Philly could look to exploit that. Get him in a third line role and bump him up to second line as soon as possible. He could really take off next year. 3 on the list, I have Ivan Barbashev and St. Louis. My reasoning for picking Barbashev is simple. I think the kid's talented, and I also think that St. Louis is in flux. They've got a number of top 6 forwards who are at or nearing the end of contracts, and at such an age that St. Louis may look to go in another direction. They did it with Backes. I have a funny feeling they're going to do it with both Steen and Stastny. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's where we're headed. I think in terms of the happiness in the universe being what it is, St. Louis may not be one of those happy corners for a little while they get things figured out. But Barbashev could really help soften that blow if he turns out to be talented and if he ends up on a line somehow with Tarasenko, this kind of thing. Number 2, and I know he's not popular. I know people don't like him, but I think Matka Chuck's going to get a hell of a lot better in his second season. He only had 13 goals in his rookie year. Lost in and amongst other teams hating him and his questionable antics on the ice. Kachuk's very talented, and I can't take that away from him. And I think his scoring totals are going to go up a lot. I'm hoping his penalty minutes go down and some of the other stuff that he pulls goes, sort of drops, and his talent becomes the main story. I know Calgary fans are well aware of his talent, but in terms of the storyline that plays out to the other fan bases around the league, Kachuk's problematic, and I think that narrative is going to change as early as next year. And number 1, from the Anaheim Ducks, Nick Ricci. I don't know. Nick Ricci in the playoffs really impressed me. His ability to score key goals at key times, be in the right spot. He seems like a natural for the power play. He only had 28 points this year. He only had 14 goals. And I think he's in a position, depending on what happens with Anaheim in the offseason and where he ends up playing next year in terms of which line, he could double both of those totals. I could see 28 goals and 56 points from him. And it's funny because Nick Ricci and Matka Chuck are pretty equal in popularity. They're both abrasive, young forwards. But they both have the potential, if they can keep their game relatively clean, to become really solid two-way forwards. And the kind of guys who get nominated for Selke trophies. Again, this depends on being able to keep things clean and being able to learn the defensive side as well as the offensive side. And, I'm not a Ducks fan, and people know that. And I'm not necessarily a Nick Ricci fan either. But I really think he has the potential to break through. So, you guys can give me your 5 in the comment section below. You can like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, because, hey, index cards. It's only high tech on this channel. It is only high tech stuff on this channel. So let me know your thoughts. Who do you pick? Say, just pick 5 guys that you think didn't necessarily set the world on fire this year. Again, in their early 20s. Not guys who, are veterans and they just had a down year, but like young kids who people maybe aren't paying as much attention to as your Austin Matthews and your Connor McDavids, and they're not going to get to that level, but they're going to be pretty damn good forwards or defensemen. I considered defensemen. I considered Noah Hansen. I considered Jacob Slavin in Carolina as well. Two Carolina defensemen, but I don't know how much offensive upside I see with Slavin. And Hanifin to me seems kind of obvious that his totals are probably going to go up into the mid-40s next year for his point totals. So I went with these 5. Let me know yours. You can let me know 5. You can let me know 10, whatever you like. But thank you very much for watching. And we got a game coming up, so I got to watch that. And I'll talk to you again soon.